Hi Sarah, and welcome to TVTN North. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah and I'm the Talent Schemes Director at the TV Foundation, which is the charitable arm of the Edinburgh TV Festival, which makes us sound very grand, but there's still only about 10 of us full-time that work across all of that. So.
Amazing. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the Ones to Watch scheme, which I know is, we are only a few days away from the application process closing, so people have got the weekend to sort themselves out. But tell us a little bit about what it is, first of all.
Yeah, so Ones to Watch, I think, is one of those things that people have heard of but don't necessarily know like what it actually is. And there's obviously a lot of those kind of lists around of people to watch, and we are a little bit different, I like to think, from a lot of those lists, because we are a totally self-referred scheme. So it's not about industry nominations or somebody putting you forward. You have to apply yourself, so it's open to absolutely anyone. And as well as kind of being on a list and getting an announcement and having your face out there, you also get a free pass for the TV festival. You get 2 days of exclusive sessions, so we bring in loads of top execs and commissioners and channel heads to talk just to our 30 Ones to Watch, so you get really great access to the kind of top people in the industry. You get a mentor, so everyone who's on scheme gets matched with a mentor who's specifically there to help them with their goals. And I think the most important thing about being on the scheme as well, that we hear time and time again, is actually being part of a cohort, because there's 30 people who are all at the same stage of their career as you, and working in TV can be quite lonely, I think, and it gives you this kind of gang to go about in, really, and people who work in all different areas of the industry who can support you and give advice, and everyone kind of helps each other out, which is just the most delightful thing about it, I think.
I mean, that sounds amazing. All the things that you've said sound amazing, and I think I did speak to someone who'd done the scheme a few years back, and that the sort of the last thing you mentioned about the gang that you get paired, that you kind of create the WhatsApp group, and I know things have been a bit different the last year, but that idea of kind of that sense of community and like-minded people is probably the lasting thing that people have, isn't it?
Yeah, we hear like time and time again from people that even years after they've been on the scheme, those WhatsApp groups are still going and they're still supporting each other and still all in touch, which is really lovely.
So how do people apply, and is it free? Tell us the.
Yeah, so it's totally free. It's totally free to be on the scheme. Everything is going to be digital this year. But we're also going to give everyone a pass for next year's festival, so that they still get the full live festival experience. And it's totally free to be a part of. If you do end up having to travel anywhere and that kind of financially is difficult for you, we have bursaries available for that. So there shouldn't be any financial barrier to being on the scheme. And the application form is on our website. It's quite a long form, but most of the questions are kind of diversity monitoring and marketing stuff, but there's 4 short essay questions that we ask you to answer as part of applying for the scheme, which is just giving us a sense of like where you are in your career, your goals, what we can do to help you with your career, what your like taste is, what your outlook on the industry is, and that you fill in on our website, and then just press submit. It's very straightforward.
And so you say it's self-referral. Do you find that, people might feel a bit shy or a bit like, oh, I don't know whether that's something that I'm actually eligible for, or
yeah,
people
definitely.
Aren't like American style, are they? Like, I'm so great.
Yeah, I am one to watch. I think that I think that is something we hear, and that's often why people who've been on the scheme then tell all their friends about it and tell them to apply, because what we're not actually looking for the kind of the most confident, most successful people who are really well connected and doing amazingly in their careers, because those people are fine and don't need us to put loads of resources into them. What we're looking for are people who are really great at their job, but maybe need a little bit of help, like finding their network. They need a bit of help figuring out what their next steps are. They want to be connected to the wider industry and kind of plugged into that network in a way that they aren't at the moment. So if you are the sort of person who you think isn't right for the scheme, then probably you're exactly the sort of person who should be applying, because that's exactly the sort of person that we want to support. And I think the reason why those groups work so well is because actually the people we're putting on the scheme are lovely people, lovely, kind, warm people who want to make the industry a better place, who believe in doing things in a kind of supportive and accessible way, and who, you know, are good friends to each other. So yeah, if you think it probably doesn't sound like you, then that probably is.
I mean, I think you know, in terms of the reputation of the scheme, you know, I've heard people describe it as sort of a career game changer, and the access that, you know, it allows people to have, as well as the opportunities. Do you want to kind of like just sort of give us a bit more about, you know, I suppose, like why schemes like this are important and invaluable to freelancers?
Yeah, I think for us, or for me, the most important thing about Ones to Watch is it is a little bit in a way about redressing the balance. I think TV is an industry where it isn't always a meritocracy, and it's not always the people who deserve to succeed that do succeed and do get noticed. And I think what Ones to Watch is really good at is identifying those people who do deserve to do really well in their careers, who are brilliant at what they do, like I say, are brilliant at what they do, and really brilliant people, and supporting them and giving them a platform that they might not get otherwise. And the kind of people who we do want to see leading the industry in 10 years' time, because they've got good values and want to give back. Everyone who's on Ones to Watch, we ask them to mentor as well. So it's about also giving back to the industry and supporting people coming up behind you. So it's about trying to support the kind of people who will make the industry a better place in the long term.
Yeah, so what kind of people can apply? Are there any restrictions? Or
so you have to have been working in TV for 3 years, but there's no upper limit. We kind of consider it a mid-career scheme, but that looks different for everyone. So there is no upper limit, there's no upper age limit. And you can work in any area of the industry as long as you work off camera. So we obviously have a lot of people come through who work in editorial roles, but we've also had production managers, people who work in business affairs or scheduling, or PR agents. So if you work in TV at all, then the scheme's open to you.
Brilliant. And I suppose, yeah, you sort of touched on it being a little bit different, so it's going to be happening virtually this year. How have you managed to adapt to the scheme? You know, obviously in the last year we've all had to adapt. How have you managed to adapt the scheme, and you know, what can people expect?
Yeah, so a lot of Zoom obviously, but I think what worked really well, obviously we have done it once now, so we know slightly more what we're doing than we did last year. But I think what works really well is we spend a lot of time like warming up before we get into the meat of the session. So do sessions where everyone gets a chance to introduce themselves and talk about their areas of the industry and make connections, so that by the time you go into the sessions with the industry professionals, you know each other a little bit. We do cameras on the whole time. It's small things like that, like cameras are always on, so that when you are like on a call with, you know, whoever the speaker is, you can all see each other, and you answer, like you ask your questions on camera. The WhatsApp groups, like famously, are a really important part of the bonding, and we keep that going through the festival as well. So even if the festival is digital, everyone's still chatting about what they're seeing and what is going on at the festival. And I think what's important for us as well is we always have like a rule of confidentiality in all of our sessions. So it means you get a real level of honesty from all of our speakers that you wouldn't get at like a public session. But it means that, you know, everyone who's on the scheme can feel really comfortable saying whatever they want about the industry as well, and being a bit more open about their struggles or things that they don't like and they would like to change. We try to create a really supportive atmosphere so people feel comfortable being honest as well. And I think that does work. Obviously, I would love to have everyone in a room, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit that I still haven't met last year's ones to watch in person, but it's still, you know, last year it still worked really well, and that group bonded in the most incredible way. So I'm confident that this year people will still get loads out of it.
And so what would you say to people that are kind of worried that they, you know, there's going to be so many applicants, it's really hard to get selected, and therefore they're not going to bother?
Well, I think you see so many people who've been on the scheme saying, oh, I didn't think I submitted an application at the last minute and I didn't think I'd get on, and then I did. So it's always worth going for. And what we try and do is everyone who gets invited to interview, we invite about 100 people to interview, and all those interviews are with really senior industry figures as well. So even if you don't get selected for the scheme, it means you'll get some face time with someone who works in your area of the industry that you might not otherwise get to meet. So that's really worth doing. And also sometimes people apply a few times for the scheme and then get on like their third or fourth try, because it's really for us about finding the right time, like the right year where it's really going to make a difference for you. And sometimes people come to us who we think are brilliant, but at that moment in time, they're very comfortable in like a particular company, or they've got like a great job that they're actually doing fine in, and then the next year they've kind of outgrown that, or they've left that company and they really need some support. So I always think it's worth like putting yourself forward for things like this, and I like definitely encourage people to have a go. And I think it's useful, actually, I hear from people that the process of applying people find really useful, because it forces you to think about where you are in your career and where you want to go, and what your ambitions are, and what you like what your opinions are about the industry, which I think is a really useful thing for anyone to do. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. Obviously I would recommend applying, but I would recommend applying.
And finally, have you got any top tips for people that are applying? You mentioned about sort of what to expect on the application form, but you know, in terms of, you know, practical tips or anything that anyone can do that can really kind of help their application.
Yeah, my top tip for applying for all our schemes is always that it's not a job application. So we don't want your very polished professional self. Don't write it like it's a cover letter. We want to get a sense of your personality, and actually you can be quite honest about what your struggles are, because we're a charity, so we want to use our resources in the most effective way. So if there are barriers you're facing in your career or things that haven't gone the way that you wanted, you can absolutely mention those. That's the sort of thing that we want to know about, because that's the kind of thing that we can help with. So I always say to people, once you've written your application or recorded your application, because you can record it as a video as well if you're better at expressing yourself verbally, send it to someone who knows you and check, does this sound like me? Because those are the applications that always really stand out when we get a sense of someone's personality and their kind of genuine opinions.
No, that's really helpful, because I think when you're writing you can go into like formal sort of the way that, you know, the way you think you should be writing, and actually, like you say, it's better for your personality to shine, isn't it?
Yeah,
like reading it out loud and kind of getting someone else to check it, and, you know, does this sound like me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, that's been so helpful, that's been really useful. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I suppose the other thing to say is if there's anyone who is like right at the beginning of their TV career, it's worth taking a look at the Network, which is our career for people starting out in the industry. So for that you need less than 3 months of experience, but I know you've got some like new starters in the group as well. So for anyone who's like right at their beginning of the career, right at the beginning of their career, it's worth having a look at that as well, because it's very similar to Ones to Watch in terms of what you get, but it's all about getting started, and that's the deadline's the same. So the details for that want to be on our website as well.
Oh right, okay, so that's the same deadline.
Yeah.
Right, amazing. Right, everyone needs to just get on with it then. Get on with it.
Great.
Oh, amazing. Thanks so much, Sarah.
No, thanks so much, Katie. It's great. Right. Thank you.
Cheers.